Good morning, today's January 25th and we're at Tropical Palms RV Resort just behind Old Town Kissimmee in Florida. And so far we absolutely love this campground. It has everything you need, but Dory says he's going to be doing a review shortly. So we'll discuss all the pros and cons of this campground in that video. Today we wanted to talk about Baja and our experience in Baja, and we were actually pretty sad that we couldn't go back to Baja this year, but just in terms of time, the time it took to get there from Montreal and the expense, the cost to get down there, we thought that we would take a break. Since we already kind of splurged and got this RV, we would take a break from that big fuel expense, also the time it takes to get down there, and we would come down to Florida. We have friends here and we have family here, so it was a bit of a sacrifice because we did want to go back to Mexico, but at the same time it kind of changes things up for us and it allows us to save a little bit of money on the trip. So as you can notice, I have my buddy but not my partner with me right now, and that's because Dory's getting a haircut in Old Town Kissimmee.
Love the new haircut. So that barbershop, honestly, they've been open for 5 months. They have 5 stars out of 150 something reviews. Super quick. I had no reservation. It was a walk-in. Took me in between clients, and I absolutely love this fresh cut.
I'm going to start to go through our tips for Baja with you, and he'll likely come back in the middle and you'll get to see his fancy new haircut. So let's get started. The first thing you want to consider before going to Mexico, of course, is medical insurance. So if something happens down there, you want to be sure that you're going to be covered. So if you already have an insurance plan that you're paying into, whether it be through your employer or if you're paying it on your own, there might be a number of days where you are actually covered. There might be a number of days where you're actually covered. For example, our insurance that we pay into, we're covered for 30 days. So the first 30 days are covered, so we just have to have a supplement to add on to that. So we ended up getting coverage for 126 days, and that ended up costing us about $386 Canadian, and that was with a $500 deductible. Keeping in mind that that's emergency medical, so if we had any doctor's visits, routine doctor's visits, or simple things, we would simply go to a clinic in Mexico and be treated there because it's quite affordable. We knew that we weren't going to be there for a long time and we wouldn't need a routine checkup, and that's why we opted for the emergency medical. So this is the number one thing that you need to think about when traveling in general, but also specifically in Mexico. You want to make sure that you have emergency medical coverage. The next consideration if you're going to be driving down is car insurance, and car insurance is required in Mexico for foreigners. You have the option between 1 month, 6 month, or 12-month insurance. You will not be covered in Mexico under your Canadian or US insurance, so keep that in mind. You always have to have valid car insurance when you're driving in Mexico. It's the law. So whether you get full coverage or just liability coverage, you have to keep that in mind before you go down. You could use Baja Bound or Vagabundo del Mar. Those are two of the most popular insurance companies, and they do have brokers that speak English that can help you. We opted for 6 months full coverage on the truck and trailer, and that cost us $470 US. I'm going to put some links in the description below about resources and information that you could find online, such as Facebook groups or web pages. And if you go to the Talk Baja group, everybody has an opinion about which car insurance you should use. However, the same ones keep coming up over and over again, and that's Baja Bound and Vagabundo del Mar. I believe there's also Lewis and Lewis. Now what we did is we ended up going through our own broker that was able to get a Mexican insurance for us, and it was set up legitimately, of course, with a Mexican insurer, but we simply paid our broker to set that up for us. That's not an option everywhere, but that was an option for us. So due to the simplicity of it, we opted to go that way. On a side note, we did decide to buy a dash cam specifically for this trip because we have heard about little fender benders going a little bit awry, and people or police demanding lots of money because of simple things or things that didn't even happen. So if you want to protect yourself, I definitely recommend getting a dash cam. We didn't encounter any problems whatsoever, but for me it was always better safe than sorry, and that was my thinking going into it. So for pets, now that was another big consideration for us because of course we wanted to bring Fiona with us, and we had done it in the past with our dog and cat when we visited Playa del Carmen for 3 months. I believe that's about 3 years back now. So it gets a little bit detailed, so I'm just going to read this off of my phone. You need a health certificate stamped no later than 10 days before your arrival into Mexico, stating that the dog is healthy. So it has to have a description of the animal, the breed, the age, the sex, and that it is in fact healthy. The health certificate also has to indicate that your dog is vaccinated against rabies, distemper, and parasites. When you return to the US, all you need is a rabies certificate with a description of your dog, and it has to be obviously not expired. So much easier coming back into the United States than going into Mexico. When we got this health certificate, we were actually in Palm Springs, and we called around a lot because there were huge discrepancies in what the vet wanted to charge us for this health certificate. So we ended up going with one that was charging us $100 US, and we thought that that was quite reasonable because a couple other places that we called were telling us that it would cost us between $200 and $300. Do your due diligence and call around and make sure you're getting the best price, considering it really is just a piece of paper. So we didn't end up getting asked for the health certificate for the dog, and that seems to be general consensus on the Talk Baja group, is that most people are not asked for this. They are usually asked when traveling by plane, but not so much when traveling by land. But we didn't really want to take a chance. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But our travel companion, Kurt, he was asked for the certificate, so we're glad that we advised him to get one. Also, if you're bringing pet food, they don't really like for you to bring more than 2 to 3 days worth. However, we took a chance because she's on a special diet, so we ended up bringing a big bag of dog food, and luckily they did not confiscate it and did not even search for it. So just keep in mind, if your dog is on a special diet, you want to make sure in advance that you're able to get the special kind of dog food that you need for your pet in Mexico, at the vets in Mexico, and luckily I was able to find more because we did end up running out. The next thing I want to talk about is your tourist visa. Now, this is not going to be necessary if you're not going past the free trade zone. And the free trade zone is, let's see, Ensenada, I believe also San Felipe is in the free trade zone. But if you're going further south from there, you are going to need your tourist visa, which is called an FMM visa. It costs $25 US, and it's not like the US and Canada where you kind of get your passport stamped and it's valid for a certain number of days. It's actually separate from your border crossing. When you're doing your border crossing, you're actually going to need to have done it in advance, or once you cross the border, you're going to have to find a place to park and go into the visa office to get that done. Keep in mind that sometimes prior to your departure from Mexico, they're going to verify if you have it, and there is a fine if you have lost it. So definitely keep that with your passport when you're traveling, and make sure you have it when you come back. If you're staying 7 days or less, the visa is free. However, if you're staying longer than 7 days, it's valid up to 6 months, and you do have to pay for it. Now, in some cases, like in Tecate, the INM office, and that's where you're going to get your tourist visa, is located right beside the border. However, when we crossed in Laredo on our way to Playa del Carmen, it was quite a few kilometers away from the border, and it was dark, it was early in the morning, and finding that office was a little bit tricky. You'll need to have your passport when you get your tourist visa, and what they'll do is they'll give you a piece of paper, they'll direct you to the nearest Banjercito counter, which is a bank. You pay for it there. Once they validate that it's been paid, you bring that piece of paper back to the INM office, they'll stamp your visa, and then you're on your way. Our next point is not needed in all parts of Mexico. So the temporary vehicle import permit, or the TIP, is required, for example, if you're going to Cancun, Merida. The mainland of Mexico will require this. But, however, in Baja, you don't need this, so that's the good part about it. You just got to kind of keep it in mind if you're going to be taking the ferry from Baja to mainland Mexico, and make sure that you've procured it in advance, or that you get it at or around the ferry office. The tip cost us $50 US, and there was a deposit that they took from our credit card of $500 US. Now that may have changed because the last time we got this was 3 years ago. Those numbers may have changed a little bit. Once you return to the United States and cross the border, before you get to the border, you're going to have to pass by one of these offices so that they can remove the tip sticker from the inside of your car and get your money refunded. If you remove the sticker yourself, or if you forget it, then you won't be able to get your $500 security deposit back, and you'll be considered to be in contravention of the rules. So it's very important, once they place a sticker in your car, leave it there until you return to the border to get your refund. What you should bring with you to the border when you get your tip is 2 to 3 photocopies of your driver's license, your passport, your Mexican car insurance, as well as your vehicle registration, and you're going to need special permission if the vehicle is leased. So keep that in mind. If your vehicle is leased and you're coming down to Mexico, you need written permission from the owner saying that you can legally bring the car into the country. So the tip for a vehicle is valid up to 6 months. The rules are slightly different for camper vans, and if you have a motorhome like a Class C, then your tip is valid for 10 years. In the Sonora and Baja regions of Mexico, you will not need a tip. So that was great for us when we were going to the Baja Peninsula. It made our lives so much easier. Those were the essential points that we wanted to cover regarding getting into Mexico by car, so by land. If you have a pet, if you're bringing your vehicle, those are the most important things to know, but it's mostly bureaucratic stuff. So let's talk about some good things to know while you're in Mexico, things that you should consider, that you should be thinking about before you go. Keep in mind when you're coming into Mexico, you should have a little bit of pesos with you. You want pesos so that you can pay the toll booths because they do not accept any other forms of payment besides pesos. And if you're trying to pay with American dollars, you're really going to get fleeced. We recommend changing over a bit of money so that you have money for your tolls and money for your taco stands. For the currency exchange, we had 2 different experiences in Baja, Mexico and Playa del Carmen. When we went to Playa del Carmen, the further we got from the US border, the better exchange rate we got. And as we got into Playa del Carmen, there was a lot of competition because there's a lot of tourism there. So all the little exchange offices were in competition with each other, and it was a great place to change US dollars to Mexican pesos. However, it's quite different in Baja. So the best rate you're going to get is at the Tecate border crossing. That was our experience. So if you do want to have cash with you, change it once you get to the border, because as you go further south down to Cabo, the rates just get worse and worse and worse. You always have the option of paying with your credit cards, but there's going to be a foreign currency transaction fee on your credit card that amounts to between 2.5 and 3%, unless you have a credit card that specifically stipulates that they waive these fees. There are also people that do very well just with cash advances from their debit card or cash advances from their credit card. Now the buddy that we were traveling with, Kurt, he had really bad experiences with his debit card. He actually brought a spare debit card because he was afraid that there was going to be an issue, and sure enough, one of the bank machines ate his card. So I did try getting a cash advance with one of my debit cards, and I had a similar experience. Although it didn't eat my card, I wasn't able to get cash. So there are certain Canadian bank cards that just don't work. I'm not sure why, but you have to keep this in mind as a possibility and either bring enough US cash for you to change over or simply pay with your credit card. Now there are certain places where you're going to get a pretty good rate, and even as good, if not better than the exchange offices, and that's going to be at Costco and Walmart and the Pemex stations. So always ask in advance before you change your money to see what the exchange rate is. And if you do happen to have US cash left over that you're not going to need, I would definitely recommend using it for fuel and using it for groceries. We did that and we did very well, and it kind of minimized what we had to change over to pesos and what we had to put on our credit card. If you decide you are going to bring cash with you, just be sure to be creative about where you keep it. You don't want to have a whole lot of cash in your pocket or in your wallet in case A, you're stopped by the police, or B, you're robbed. Now, it's unfortunate to say that these are realities in Mexico. Now, you got to keep in mind that the wages are very low there, and sometimes it's a question of feeding their families. So As unfortunate as it is, I can understand that it happens because tourists can be big targets, especially if you're driving down, you have 2 bikes in the back, 2 kayaks on top, and you look like you have a lot of money. So if you are kind of being targeted, it's easy to just pull out your wallet and say, sir, this is all I have, and just have the equivalent of $20 US. To be honest, that is a safer way to go if you're stopped by a police that's hassling you. But in the Talk Baja group on Facebook, they definitely recommend you call their bluff and say, no, take me to your police station. The Mexican Tourism Board does have a tip line so that you can call in these infractions, and you kind of want to get a sense about what the person looks like and their name so that you can actually report it. Now, again, there are a lot of people on different sides of this issue. Some people say just pay it and go, and other people say just go to the police office, call their bluff, because what they're doing to tourists is wrong. So my recommendation and what we did is the cash that we had, we kept it in multiple different hiding places, and that worked well for us, although we didn't get hassled. Our travel companion Kurt did get stopped by the police and was hustled for about 500 pesos, which is equivalent to about $35. The roads in Mexico, and specifically Baja, are very treacherous, so we can't stress this enough. Don't drive at night. Although we did it, and we did it because we absolutely had to, we were white knuckling it the whole way. There's no signage most times for speed bumps, and when you're going at a certain speed, especially when you have a trailer, you don't want to hit a speed bump. Also, there are no cattle guards for cattle, so you have cattle crossing the highway, people crossing the highway at all times. So keeping that in mind, just make sure you're driving during the day. If you can caravan, that's even better, and just always stay alert. That's a nice haircut. You look handsome.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of, they have 5-star reviews, so.
Yeah, I gotta
really
drop
good.
him one.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm talking about the roads in Baja. Now, what were your impressions of the roads there?
Some good, some bad. Right. Of course, don't drive at night. Right. If you drive during the day, you'll see a little bit more clear, and take your time. We did break our itch.
That's right.
Right, we broke it. So yeah, just take your time, be careful. I even know the previous owners of Casablanca, they went to Baja with our escape, and the door fell off.
Yeah.
So I heard.
So actually, this trailer, amazingly, was in Baja at the same time that we were, but we never bumped into them. It was so crazy. So even though we probably would not bring this to Baja, it was great with the casita. It was small and maneuverable enough to do it. I would feel nervous bringing this. But if you have a fifth wheel escape, just know that this one has been there and it survived. Highway 1 in Baja is so narrow, and the locals drive fast, and sometimes it's very windy, and it's only 18 feet wide across. So really be careful, take your time. Even if there are other people that are not respecting the speed limits, trust me, respect the speed limits. They're there for a reason. If you break a highway law, if you blow a stop sign, if you're driving above the limit, then you become a target for extortion. So the police will easily have a reason to stop you and fine you, and that gives them an opportunity to extort money from you. And again, we don't want to scare you, but this stuff does happen there, although it didn't happen to us.
It happened to people we met, and someone that was traveling with us. So just be careful, do extra long stops, really follow the speed limit, because the bottom line is, if they want to extort you, they will try, and they will do it. I remember the first day we crossed into Baja, our friend got extorted for something like 500 pesos, which
Yep.
is $35. It's not a lot of money, but it's the principle. And what I'm trying to say is, by paying the bribes to the police officers, it just encourages them to do more, right? It worked, so they're going to try to stop more people for no reason. Even there was another couple at the first campground we stayed at. Not the first campground. Was it the first campground? Yeah.
It was, yeah.
He got extorted for something like $300 because he had a pocket knife. I mean,
yeah.
so even those little things, don't bring pocket knives with you, leave them in your trailer. If you would have to asked us the first day that it happened, if we would have paid, I would have said yes. For $35, you know what, I don't want the headaches, I want to go on with my trip, I'll pay it and move on. But if you would have asked me the same questions on the last day, I would have said no. Because the more people you meet, everybody keeps saying the same thing. Say no, they'll drive a little bit with you because they will say, oh, we'll take you to the police station. They'll drive 2-3 miles and then they're going to say, I'll give you a chance. But again, do what's best for you at the moment. It's just from our own experience.
Yeah.
We gained so much confidence towards the end that our attitude or the way we would have approached the first time, it changed.
Yeah, it changed drastically, absolutely. And you know, the more people we spoke to too, and who told us about their experiences. And again, there's a tip line, so if this does happen to you, you can call Mexican Tourism Board and report it. And each time we crossed a military checkpoint, now most of them were fine. We were a little bit nervous going through, you know, because they have these big guns and they're people in authority. So the first few were really easy. But then we got further south and they were asking us all kinds of questions like, how much did you pay for this camera? How much is this worth? How much is that worth? And we were getting a little bit on edge. Luckily, again, nothing happened. But as we were crossing the military checkpoint, there's a phone number and it says, if you want to report abuse, contact us at this number. So you do have recourse if you feel uncomfortable about something. You can make complaints.
Yeah, there's actually a military checkpoint right before you get into town, and usually we've been pretty easy with checkpoints. They do check, not very thorough though, but this one over here was, yeah, it was very thorough, and the guy wanted to buy everything we owned.
And as soon as we got to that little town, what was it called? The San Lucas campground there?
Yeah, San Lucas Every campground.
So as soon as we got to that campground, the people there were insisting that we make a complaint because people were asking, the military was asking us how much things were worth. Well, did they actually really harass us? We're not sure. It made us feel uncomfortable for sure, but was it worthy of reporting them? We weren't sure. We opted not to report it, but we kept that phone number handy in case something did happen in the future.
That was near San Rosalita.
Yeah, exactly. Santa Rosalita, exactly. So if you end up getting a Mexican SIM card, the tip line for the police extortion is 078. So you dial 078 from your cell phone and you'll be able to make a complaint. The next thing you want to consider is vitamins and prescriptions. So if you have anything that's specialty, that's hard to find, that's hard to get, let me tell you from my experience, it's hard to find vitamins, especially the ones that I'm used to in Mexico. And that goes doubly so for prescriptions. If you have something that you absolutely need to have down there, they may not have the specific brand that you're looking for if you go to one of the pharmacies there. So definitely bring enough for your trip. If you're going to be in Mexico for a while, you may want to have your mail forwarded there. Now, what we recommend is either DHL or FedEx. Never use Mexican snail mail because they're always being robbed. Always being robbed and notoriously never showing up, late, you name it. So if you really want to get your packages, it has to be sent by DHL or FedEx. And what we did is we had it forwarded to Maranatha Campground in La Paz. And they were happy to receive it for us. It worked out really, really well. It was kind of urgent. It was our vehicle registration and we didn't want to be driving without it. So we were so happy to have that option. And we used the UPS store in Montreal to forward our mail. So it was easy for them to just throw all our mail in a FedEx package and ship it to us. Next thing we want to talk about is gas stations.
Yeah, let's talk about fuel. There's a lot of scams at the gas stations. The scam that they do is that they don't reset the counter. So before you start filling up your car. So we're filling up for the day. So when you fill up over here, basically you never do. They always have an attendant that fills up for you. So what we do is we make sure we have a lock So you opened, so you get a chance to see what kind of fuel they're putting. You don't want them to put premium. And also you need to make sure when they start the counter, it says 0. Sometimes they like to scam off the top so it doesn't show 0. So you just gotta be aware of that, right? It happens more often than you think. The other thing is you always have the options to pay in pesos or in dollars. And you just need to compare the exchange rate. Sometimes the exchange rate is better than banks or ATMs, so it's worth it to pay in dollars, sometimes it's not. Like today in this case, they're taking 17 pesos. So not so good. Normally it should be about at 18. Make sure the counter is at 0, and they're kind of used to it already. Because even before we said anything, the attendee and every single gas station is full service. We never filled up by ourselves. It's not because we chose it that way. It
doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's always somebody who's going to pump the fuel for you. So before they start, they normally 0.000, then go ahead. And always give a round number. Our round number was 500 pesos at the beginning, so you know how much 500 pesos is gonna fill up on your tank. So if it gives you half a tank, then you know 1,000 pesos is gonna give you a full tank. So if you end up once paying 1,000 pesos and you're 3/4 full, then you know something might have happened. So get familiar with how much does it cost you to fill up your tank, half a tank, or quarter a tank, and so on. So you're gonna have a good gauge to see if you're getting scammed or not. The other thing that we did that really helped is, normally sometimes you get there, these guys are so eager to start pumping, they're opening your gas tank and they're filling it up. We got one with the key. For your gas tank, we got a gas tank that you need a key to open. So we had the key. Every time they tried, they couldn't. I needed to get out, open, and then they would say, okay, it's at 0. And I'd say, right, 500. You also have sometimes the option to pay in US dollars. So now look at the currency. If it's in your favor, pay in US. If it's not in your favor, pay in pesos. But double check, because sometimes they will reverse the numbers, right? So let's say the currency, I don't know, what was it trading back then?
Oof.
I don't know, a rough number. So we could just...
I think 19?
Yes.
19 pesos to $1.
So let's say 1902, an example, and then they will flip 19 to 0.
Yeah.
Right? So
to have the advantage.
Exactly. So just make sure, like, you do it on your calculator. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost me, and do it 2-3 times just to make sure you're on the right sides. And then you know you're not going to get taken for a ride, right?
Yeah. So these are, again, just guidelines. A lot of the scams happen at the gas stations, and it only happened, we only got scammed once successfully. They did try 2 other times. One other time they flipped the US conversion rate, and another time they tried, we gave them a 500 bill and they said, no, you only gave me a 50 bill. And let me tell you, that made me red, and I'm like, no, I didn't. I gave you 500. So finally they ended up backing down and we won that argument. But you always want to, especially if you're giving them a bill, you say it. You make them say it. I'm giving you 500 pesos, yes? And have them agree, and then you're good. And again, the majority of the people were lovely, and we did give them an equivalent of $1 US per fill up as a tip. However, there are going to be some people that try. So just keep that in mind, and knowing these scams in advance will help it make it much easier when it does come time to fill up the tank.
The 500 peso trick that they do scam, it's only on the old bills. I never saw the new ones, so apparently they're a little bit different.
The color is different.
Yeah, so if you're down there, pull up a 50 peso and pull out a 500 just to make sure if they look alike, then you know what to do.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's very important, before you even go to a gas station, let's say an example, you're gonna fill up your tank and you found a gas station down the street. Just pull up aside and pull out Google reviews. If they have scammed people in the past, I guarantee you there's going to be a negative review in there.
Yeah, the one time we did get scammed, later we checked the Google review and they had 1 star and 200 reviews. So after that, when we were in Baja, before we would go to a gas station, we would actually check the reviews of that particular gas station before going there. So we know we had a better chance and the service was better. And most of the people honestly leaving reviews, it is a lot of Canadians and Americans.
For the guys that have diesel, you do have good diesel down there, but you also have bad diesel.
Yeah.
I remember there was a review or somebody made a post on Talk Baja group, and I believe someone made a post about they got water and they got water on their diesel. So that gas station wasn't good for that.
We've actually spoken to a couple of people that have diesel engines and have refused to go to Mexico because of this, because they were afraid that something was going to happen. So it kind of worked out for us. We kind of like having a fuel engine better than having a diesel engine for several reasons, and this was just one of the many reasons we prefer to have a fuel Dodge Ram versus a diesel Dodge Ram.
But we did see a lot of diesels. I mean, there's a lot of trucks, there's a lot of 18-wheelers
a lot
down
of Sprinters,
there.
Mercedes Sprinters, yeah.
So it's still safe, but still be cautious, right?
Yeah. If you're going to Mexico and you want to have a Mexican SIM card, it's super easy. Before you leave your country, so before you leave Canada or the US, make sure that your carrier unlocks your phone so that it can accept Mexican carriers. Now, there are several companies. There's Telcel. I would recommend Telcel or Amigo. I don't recommend AT&T because it didn't work for us past Ensenada. So go for Telcel. The SIM card is going to cost you $10 US, and the plan is going to cost you about $10 US as well. And it's unlimited talking to Mexico, Canada, and US. Unlimited WhatsApp, unlimited Skype, unlimited Facebook Messenger, unlimited Facebook, and then on top of it you get 3 gigs of data. So much cheaper for us than using our Canadian plan.
Also, I could easily say that 90% of the time we had cell phone reception. There was only one part that was the dead zone, and it lasted, I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours.
It was a big zone though. We're going to link some of our videos in the description below so you can have an idea of what some of the things that we experienced, some of the things that we're talking about right now, so you could see for yourself what happened. So that dead zone was pretty intense, and there was one of the bays that we couldn't visit because there was no cell reception there, and we need to be connected at all times, we need to be reachable, so that didn't really work out for us. One thing to keep in mind if you're driving around, for us, you know, we set up camp and then we take the truck to drive. You don't want to leave anything valuable visible in your car because 90% chance that it's going to get broken into and that's going to get stolen. Now, that's not unique to Mexico. The same thing, we had the same warnings before we went to San Francisco, and the same thing happens in Montreal. Just be smart about it. Don't leave anything valuable in your car that's in plain view. And we even read about someone on the Talk Baja Facebook group that actually left their truck doors unlocked, so if someone wanted to go in and rifle through, they could, and to prevent them from breaking a window, because when you're down there, it's pretty hard to have a window replaced. Now, we didn't actually encounter anyone that this happened to, because most of the people, you know, they know not to keep valuables in plain view, so they didn't do that, but it's something that you want to keep in mind. Now, the language barrier is a big thing that people tell us is a barrier for them to going down, and I would say just go anyway, because there are apps. There's Google Translate. You're going to encounter other Canadians and Americans that can help you, and oftentimes just with pictures and hand signals you can get your point across. And in most of the touristy spots, most of the campgrounds, they are going to have someone that speaks English, so definitely don't let that prevent you from going down. And I think the takeaway from this video is really, please don't be afraid of Baja. I mean, all of the risks that we just discussed are greatly outweighed by all of the rewards and all of the experiences and all of the fun and all of the amazing people that we met down there. So we would do it again, even knowing all these risks and even having spoken to people that had some bad experiences, because we saw the flip side of it. We just had such an amazing time there.
Yeah, like Menon was saying, one thing that I noticed, I mean, maybe because we stayed in a lot of campgrounds, it's very touristy. I'd say a good 70% people that you're going to encounter, they're Canadians or Americans or from Europe. It happens a lot. It wasn't hard at all, the communications. It was easy, it was simple. And safety-wise, I don't think there was ever one time that I felt scared. Baja, Mexico is very touristy from north to the south, and you just need to be smart about it. Most of the time we stayed at campgrounds. We didn't really want to go venture out, you know, in being seclusive, nobody around.
No cell network.
Yeah, that becomes dangerous, you know. And for the price that you pay for the campgrounds, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you want to explore, well, most of these campgrounds, they have 24/7 security. So you could leave your stuff there, pick your truck, and go explore, even if it's an hour, 2 hours drive, or whatever that it is, you know.
Yeah.
We did that many times, especially when we were in Cabo. We were going all the way to Los Barriles.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we felt secure with our camper there. There was a security guard at night. We were never worried. We did hear some horrible stories of getting robbed, but that's because they go on iOverlander. They are looking for that beautiful spot to camp where there's nobody around and there's no cell network for hours.
So essentially they're isolating themselves, and already they're targets because they're tourists. So the point of all this is that Baja was amazing, but shh, don't tell anyone.
Yeah, we had a good time. Honestly, we've traveled quite a bit, and the first year we went to the West Coast, we thought about Mexico, but we were afraid. Then we ended up meeting a couple that they've been doing this trip for over 35 years. And they were a little older than us, and we're like, you know what? We're going to do it. And honestly, I miss Baja today.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
The excitement, new places, meeting people, tons of Canadians, tons of Americans. We made so many friends that we still have. We talked today on Facebook.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
very enriching. Don't be afraid, just make sure you get the right insurance, and then you'll be set to go. Please drop a comment below, or if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer it. And we'll see you in the next video.